Rebound here in Tampa Bay. We want to make sure that you have the resources you need to navigate you and your family through this very difficult time. Today we're talking to meteorologist Greg D about how different and how much different preparing for hurricane season is going to be under a pandemic. And also, he uncovered one very positive impact people traveling less is having on the Tampa Bay area. It's all part of his series, Greg's Geek Fix, which you can catch 3 times a week on Good Morning Tampa Bay on ABC Action News. I'm James Tully with ABC Action News, and this is the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast. Now here's Greg. And I love when people drudge up some stories here about how we've had some positive impacts from the pandemic, which is so difficult to find, but you really did find that, environmentally speaking, we're doing a lot better.
And it's crazy. So this one was related to air quality, and NASA they have a satellite that they just launched. The Copernicus satellite is what it's called, and it measures particulate matter in the atmosphere, super specialized. It's been up maybe, several years, probably within this decade. And so they have a lot of information, and they took an average of the daily amount of stuff in our air that's human generated between 2015 and 2019. So a daily average for, I think it was April. And
that's a long time.
That's a long time. That's a good data set. And then they compared it to the levels of the same stuff, they call it particulate matter, in the air in April 2020, last month. And the overall Bay Area traffic is down to only about 17%, which is not as much as other cities have experienced during the pandemic. And I think that makes sense because we are just a more car-dependent community. Like, yes, you can tell me stay at home in Tampa, but I can't walk to a grocery store. I can't walk to some of these services that I need. I have to drive. So we continue to drive. We just drove less. But that 17% reduction in traffic, the reduction in pollution because of that drop has been greater than you would expect from just a 17% reduction in traffic. Now, that also could be a result of maybe some businesses shutting down. We don't really have a lot of manufacturing, so you can't really point to like factories.
We're not a manufacturing. We're not a heavy manufacturing.
Maybe air travel. We are, Central Florida, especially Orlando, is pretty heavily air travel. But airplanes, they don't typically produce enough pollution to impact the city they're coming in and out of. And here's what this really shows me. And I don't really have time to make these big grand points in Geek Fix. It's just a quick information hit. But what it shows is that, number one, we can make a difference. A huge difference in air quality and environment by reducing travel. Tampa is the largest city of its size without a public transportation system that is not buses. We are the largest city in the United States that has no viable public transportation system.
And you've been saying to me for years
we need a train system. We need a train system, a trolley system. And what it shows is that we don't have to get everybody to ride it. We just need 1 in 5, 20% of people to use this. To reduce our traffic by 20% would make a huge difference in the quality of the air that we breathe.
It's pretty amazing. It really is. And I guess you're right. We're looking at a temporary fix right now because people are going to start traveling more, and everything's going to pick back up and resume as normal. Hopefully, that's the real hope here. But if something long term can be figured out, and you think a public transportation system,
and it doesn't have to be anything extensive. When you look at the way the city core is growing,
but I guess, Greg, would that get us back to this point where we are now? If
it could.
Conceivably,
it could. And I think when look at Orlando is a little farther ahead of us than we are, but they're still far behind. But when you look at where the pollution was, there was a hot spot over Tampa, Orlando, and then the connecting I-4 corridor between us. So I think doing something like bringing in Virgin trains, which we'll see if that company survives this, and connecting Tampa and Orlando, reducing the number of cars that drive between the city on a daily basis, connecting Orlando to its airport and the theme parks with a train system, which would be in the works if that were to happen. And then in Tampa, just this urban core that's developing. I saw another huge mixed-use development now being planned for Ybor, where the old Rays Stadium was. Somebody just bought the old Tampa something housing.
Well, where the old possible landing spot for the Rays.
Right.
Yeah,
so I mean, so that then connects Ybor to Channelside, and now you have this nice walkable. Channel size can be connected to Water Street.
So anybody who maybe would have driven from Ybor to Channelside may not need to.
And then you build out this train system, and if the Virgin Trains goes out through Riverview or Brandon, which it would have to on the way out to Orlando, then you can bring those people in. You connect USF. I mean, it's possible. What it requires is, and I'm starting to be a big believer in this, is that the leadership that we have in this city, they're just happy to maintain things as it is. And they don't really want to, somebody is just going to have to sit down, be brave. This is a bravery thing.
Sure.
And do something that has not been done before to make a huge change. And that's probably going to require spending money. That's going to require changing something in a big way that everyone is probably too scared to do, and to force people to get out of their habits. Just like this quarantine, this virus has changed. It took that to change our habits.
Now we're getting ready for storm season during this pandemic, okay? And I remember it was either you or Dia or maybe both of you looking at me and saying something to the effect of, oh boy, we're going through this now. Wait until hurricane season starts.
Yeah.
This is going to be a real challenge. But you guys are on top of it. I know you've worked with the whole weather team, and you guys have put together the Storm Watch special, which is going to be a little different this year.
Yeah, I already did 2 of my packages from home. Just
of course,
it's in my kitchen, and yeah, very very different.
So we first have to deal with the fact that at least some things are still in short supply.
Yeah,
right?
and honestly, now that I think about it. And there still may be some important things that are severely delayed. I found just by looking at some of the things that you would put in a hurricane kit these days, they've changed over the years. Before it was batteries, a flashlight, non-perishable items. Well, now we all have phones and laptops, and I think one of the things that you need to put into your hurricane kit is some sort of like battery backup device, like a large rechargeable battery that could charge a phone 5 or 6 times, or a laptop. There are solar chargers you can buy. There are all these devices now that you can have for, to make things more comfortable. A backup light that hooks up to one of those batteries. Any of that may be delayed, not because it's not available. It's because a lot of the factories manufacturing, not necessarily the product, but the components that go into the product, like the manufacturer of the battery bank that you buy for your phone. They may have 90% of the items in stock, but they need that last switch or that last processor or that last something that was made in a factory in Korea or China that was simply shut down for 6 weeks. The things are getting manufactured, but because of the way the supply lines work, it takes time for this thing to make its way across from China to the United States. Now there's a backlog of things. So you may be, there's something I ordered the other day on Amazon, even though a lot of their stuff is back to next day or 2 days, it still told me potentially arriving mid-June, because of some sort of shortage. So I think that is an issue. I think that there's maybe large, I don't know about how larger things are doing, like generators, but a lot of folks have also recently, because they're at home, have done a lot of at-home projects. I don't know how Home Depot and Lowe's are doing with some of their supplies.
I don't know either. I know that groceries have rebounded in a huge way.
They have.
But
now our meat supply is low.
Well,
it's being disrupted.
It's being disrupted, and I think there's been some price increases on some things. But then it's weird because bacon, as we reported on Good Morning Tampa Bay, has gone down in price, and I've watched that closely because I love bacon, but that's gone down. Eggs have come back. That was a hard one to find for a while. So the question is we don't know. We just don't have any idea to know how the next couple of months are going to play out here. But Florida's slowly reopening, and it seems like if you're a grocery delivery recipient like I am, I know a lot of people out there listening are, that has certainly gotten a lot better. I mean, they've hired more people. There's more windows to get things delivered. That's a great sign.
It is.
And also, I think as of this week, Amazon is no longer limiting the number of items you can have on certain things.
Which is good.
That's great. It's a great sign, right? That's a fantastic sign. But again, hurricane season starts in June. You always warn me about that first couple of weeks in September. That's a dangerous couple of weeks. we don't know what it's going to be like then.
No. And the other thing, though, that also concerned me is because we're all relying on Amazon so heavily, they're hiring more people. There are more people working in their warehouses. What if there's an outbreak at your local Amazon warehouse? I mean, that's possible, and it has to be shut down for 2 weeks. If our Ruskin warehouse gets shut down, or I think there's one in Polk County in Davenport. What if that gets shut down and we no longer are able to get some of these items for a while? And there's a storm coming. How are we going to handle shelters and sheltering people?
Yeah.
Luckily, tourism is down. Maybe there'll be more available hotel rooms. I'm not really sure how this is going to be handled. Certainly putting large amounts of people in proximity of each other is not a good idea for 2 to 3 days.
No, it's not.
If there is a storm, whether it be just strangers in a local public shelter or just having a bunch of family come from all over the state. What if there's a hurricane that threatens South Florida where there's been a lot more COVID and they all come to the West Coast?
It's a tough thing because our state depends so much on tourism, and hotels might be back to the point where they're actually being able to take a lot of people in. However, wouldn't they be almost the perfect thing to have as shelters because you can keep people in individual rooms like that?
Yeah, hopefully. But or do they become like cruise ships?
I don't know.
Where if you pack, because usually for a hurricane, you also pack people pretty densely. So, it's. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to happen. Unfortunately, the forecast for the season is to be more active. I don't know how that. Obviously, that doesn't forecast landfalls. We don't know how many of those.
No, I mean there could be a ton just stuck out in the Atlantic.
Correct. So, but just moving people in large waves from one part of the country to the other. That's not just us. What if Houston has to be evacuated again? And everyone goes to Dallas or whatever, Savannah, and everyone travels to Charleston or something like that. You start moving these large groups of people. Well, in that group, there are going to be people that are going to be carrying the virus, and are they going to bring it to? Those people are not going to get Amazon delivery. They're going to go to restaurants. They're going to go to fast food. They're going to go into your supermarket.
Yeah.
Because they have no choice.
Well, I think the smartest thing to do is just to prepare as if we're going to have a situation where this is all going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you can do. And for anybody listening, be ready to be in the situation we're in right now, where you're still tentative and everyone's tentative about going out and going to places and being in large groups and having to deal with a possible evacuation scenario. I mean, you guys always say prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Correct.
So, I mean, look at a situation like Irma and imagine how you are going to take that on with what we're dealing with now coming up in a couple of months.
Yeah, and this is the year. Like, if you've never had a hurricane kit, now is the time to have one before the season starts. I think this is the perfect year to do that. We have a storm that could form off the coast this weekend, which is not unusual, but kind of early to be talking about a storm middle of May. And hopefully that's not a
precursor
of things to come,
Yeah.
And I hope the season doesn't start getting active because the Gulf can get active in June and especially July.
Don't we know it?
So we don't want an early start to the season.
I think it's interesting that we have to now. I think it's interesting too that during the situation there's going to be some changes to shelters. Mm-hmm. And you guys are definitely going to dig into that on this special coming up.
Yeah, and I'm interested. That was not my part of the show, and unfortunately, I don't see the other pieces because we're all far apart from each other. So I'm interested to see what the community and what our leaders are thinking about, and I know they've had their hands full, and there's been a lot to try to decide, and try to think about here. But hopefully, good leadership thinks ahead, and they're thinking to June, July, and August and how we're going to handle this.
Oh, you could do it. There's all kinds of things you could do. I mean, you could separate it with screens. You could have screens in there.
But that could also limit your capacity, right?
It most certainly would.
So now do we open more shelters than we typically could because of that?
I don't know.
It's a very interesting idea.
It is an interesting idea. Now, remember, you're going to have a lot of buildings that haven't been used in a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're going to be used as shelters.
That's right. The schools have been closed,
Schools have been closed for, at that point, for, 6 months?
And will they be open when we go back in August, or are we still going to be on this?
Again, something else to just wait and see. But there's lots of things you can do. Can I make one contribution to your hurricane kit? Because I've been an advocate of this for a little while after meeting a lot of guys from the military. MREs, meals ready to eat. Our troops eat them. Everything is contained in this box, and it could be spaghetti and meatballs. You put it in a packet, and there's some kind of chemical reaction device in there, like a sleeve or something. And if you put like a strip of metal over top of it, it'll actually cook the meal for you. You can stack these babies up in your garage, and you can buy them on Amazon. Now, they're not the most inexpensive thing. I mean, let's just say you could get maybe a dozen for $100. However, imagine having those instead of just your canned goods, your non-perishables, whatever else. They could be a really good thing for people to have on hand.
And now that we're...
Tons of calories, too.
The other thing I thought about, Woot.com has those on sale once in a while. They call them survival meals.
Okay, cool.
So that's another one you can check out. If you don't... Also, my big suggestion is, before I get to my next point, if you find something on Amazon, before you purchase it, I would always look at eBay. They often have the same sellers for a lower price. So I found some success with a lot of people going to Amazon. Something ships in June, but you go to eBay, that same item ships now because not as many folks are going to eBay as are going to Amazon. The other thing I think that kind of brings up is, well, once the storm passes, and let's say we don't have power, and we're still in some sort of social distancing setup, is this going to slow down the recovery? Like, are power crews going to be limited by how they work and how close they keep to each other? Or like, are their protective equipment, is that going to slow them down? Like, is this, whatever, if infrastructure has to be rebuilt, are we going to have issues with rescuing people in a flood? Like, you can't put 15 people in a boat. You're going to have to put in 5 because we're social distancing while trying to rescue people. I mean, like, is that where we're going to be at? Like, I don't know. I
don't know either. That's interesting. That's something I had not thought of, is that our recovery could be slowed if we're still... I mean, this is a tough one.
What if a hurricane hits an outbreak zone? Because we're going to have these little outbreaks once in a while.
Yeah.
And there are some big cities along the coast. And what if one of those areas gets hit during a hurricane? And now you're going to an area that is also active with COVID.
So what do? Do you speed up evacuation? I mean, are evacuation orders going to be put in place faster because of what we're...
Question number 2, because we live in America. Are other cities going to want to take those people?
Yeah. Exactly. And what are evacuation routes?
If Houston has to be evacuated and there's an outbreak of COVID, is Dallas going to say, don't come here?
Don't come here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. The best we can do is to get you as prepared as possible.
Or you're going to have to put those people in like special isolated areas.
I don't know.
A COVID shelter, literally, for people that are positive with COVID.
Well, look, it's not like you can send people to West Virginia from here.
Right.
You can't send them to Montana from here. No. And name me another state that's very, sparsely populated.
Do you get the FEMA trailers out again and put them in a spot? That's just...
It sounds like a nightmare scenario. Again, we're talking about worst case scenarios here. Okay? Very real scenarios, but worst case.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do at home is just... If you have always put off a hurricane kit, this isn't the year to do that.
Yeah, no,
it's not.
Not the year to do it. It's very simple. It's the other thing I would also suggest is, it's probably something I can do for a Geek Fix too. Is do a digital scan of all your documents. I actually just noticed the Google Drive app. If you use that as your backup, now it just has a scan feature. When you open the app and you add something, you can just scan.
That's awesome.
It scans, like I was doing a receipt for my HSA and it scanned, found the receipt, cropped it, and put it into the right folder in like 2 button presses. So that's a great way to really have backups of all your documents. Don't even put them in your bin. Save that for food and other things. Do a digital backup. You're at home, you're doing nothing.
Smartest thing I ever did, actually, was when I backed up all my stuff like that. And you know what? It was Hurricane Irma that forced me to do it. Yep. That's what forced me into Google Drive. I think I told you about this. Before that, I had everything on an external Before that, I had everything on an external hard drive. And until Irma was upon us, I decided, no, now's the time to get everything on the cloud because, I had to leave my apartment and work with you for, 5 straight days without a break, without coming home. And I thought, well, if my apartment is a fish tank by the time I get back, at the very least, I won't have to worry about anything I can't
Correct.
replace being gone.
Correct.
Google Drive's a great,
Correct. Absolutely.
one of many great resources for you to take
And then you have
advantage of.
access to that stuff. If you can't return to your home, you have access to all your documents remotely.
And that has actually been the greatest part of putting things on something, a cloud service like Google Drive.
Insurance information, receipts.
I mean,
whatever
before
you
this,
need.
if I wanted to like show somebody some old family movies, like I go visit an aunt and uncle or something, I would have had to have lugged this giant external hard drive,
Right.
plug it in, wait for all the wheels to start spinning.
Yeah.
Now I just pull up my iPad and I go to the
There
Google
it
Drive
is.
app and there it is.
There it is.
So it was a no-brainer for me. Greg, thank you so much.
Thank
Stormwatch 2020 is coming up on Wednesday, May 27th,
That's
which
right.
means that I'm running this podcast before then.
That would be good.
So the pressure's on to edit. The pressure's on to edit. Check it out. It's 7:30 at night. Also, we're going to have it on our streaming platform.
Probably Roku, definitely.
All that.
It's in the wheel.
Basically, open up the app. You'll see
It'll be there.
Stormwatch 2020. These guys do a great job between you, Dennis, Shay, and Jason. You're putting together an entire show. All of it's great information. And Greg's Geek Fix. Look for it almost every single day now on Good Morning
3 times
Tampa
a
Bay.
week, I think, now is where I'm up to.
I think
And
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
yeah, there's a YouTube channel too. I guess just search Geek Fix or something.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're nice
Little
little
nuggets.
bite size.
Yeah, just a little bit, just to geek you out.
Yeah, and they do. They get very geeky. Please subscribe to the Rebound Tampa Bay podcast on Apple and Stitcher, and know that at ABC Action News, once we start to rebound here in Tampa Bay, there are steps you can take to find help for you and your family. Visit abcactionnews.com/rebound. I'm James Tully. Thank you for listening.